Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates and some tips and tricks for General Grievous. I haven't been doing one of these tips and tricks videos for quite a long time, mostly because there hasn't been any new content to give tips and tricks about. But General Grievous is a quiet, tricky hero to master, and just to be clear, I have not mastered him at all. There's a lot of people who are a lot better than me at playing Grievous. Well, the main thing is that I've improved since I started playing him. I think the first time I played him I got 0 kills, but now I can actually play really well in Heroes vs Villains and fairly well in Galactic Assault, I would say. And due to the fact that some of his abilities simply don't work as intended, it's a bit trickier to use him, but once you understand which abilities to use when, you can actually go on some pretty good streaks in both game modes actually. So I wanted to go through all of the abilities, when I think you should use them, which star cards are the best ones, how to play him overall, and so on. So I'm gonna start off by going over the abilities and when I think you should use them, and then after that we can move on to how I play him overall as well as his star cards. So if you start off with Unrelenting Advance, this is an ability that is simply not worth using at all in its current state, because it has multiple bugs, or I guess one main bug and one balancing issue, and the bug is simply that the block does not work. It can occasionally work against lightsabers and blaster bolts, but most of the time it simply doesn't. And when you use Unrelenting Advance, you're not able to back up and you're very limited to how fast you can turn, which means that you're making yourself into a very easy target to kill. And when the blocking doesn't work, it is almost like killing yourself. Pretty much every time I've used this ability in Galactic Assault, it's meant that I've died. And if you go and look at any of the people like What a Weirdo or Paul John who managed to get these long kill streaks, you will see that they never use that ability, and I've learned to do the same thing. As cool as it is and as much as I wish it worked, in its current state it is just not worth using. Because if you talk about the damage there, it only does about 75 damage, which is half the health of a normal trooper. And the problem is that the damage only ticks every 2 seconds, so if they run into you, they will take 75 damage, and then they can literally stand on you and shoot you for 2 seconds before they potentially take damage again. And they might not even die then if it's a heavy or if you're boosted. So the fact that it does so much less damage than just slashing with a lightsaber, and the fact that it doesn't block, means that it is better to not use any ability than to use this ability. I think it can be really good once it's fixed, especially for pushing through corridors, and if they increase the damage, either how often the damage ticks or just like doubling at least the current damage, it can be useful. But as of right now, the only occasional time I will use this is if I'm stuck in a corner and everything is on cooldown, stamina is out, then I might as well use it and pray that it's actually gonna work like it's intended. But most of the time, especially in Galactic Assault, don't bother using this ability in its current state. And I think it's also worth noting that again, these tips are for Grievous in its current state. So once they fix Unrelenting Advance and potentially Thrust Surge and some of the other bugs, I might do a new one, an updated video, because at that point I think the playstyle will change quite a lot, and this video is focused on his current state if you want to play him and level him up. If we then move on to Thrust Surge, this ability is also bugged, but not as badly, I guess we could say. The main problem here is that more than 50% of the time when you use it, it won't actually hit the enemy. You will very clearly see the lightsabers piercing through the enemy, and they still won't take any damage from it. And that makes it a very situational thing to use. You should not engage with this ability if they're shooting at you, because first of all, it takes a second or two to kind of lock on and charge it up, and then when you actually engage, chances are they won't get hit and won't die, which means that you're just making yourself more vulnerable than you have to. But keep in mind that there is actually an indicator under the stamina bar that goes from green to blue, and once it's blue, I think that basically means that it's supposed to hit. But that is very up and down, I gotta say, because sometimes that indicator does not show up and I can still charge and kill them. Sometimes that indicator does show up and it doesn't hit them. But it seems like if you actually lock on properly, it goes to blue and you charge, you have a bigger chance of hitting them. And it also shows a white outline of the person that you have locked onto. So that's something to keep in mind. And basically, if they're standing still, if you charge on for longer, it's a bigger chance of you hitting them. But it's still not 100%, and it's a very situational thing to use. I think this ability is more helpful in heroes versus villains, because a lot of times you might be out of stamina, for instance, and if you use this one, you actually knock down the enemy, which means that it's worth the risk of potentially not hitting, because if you do hit, you do damage and you knock him down, and you can then follow up with your claw rush, or do the other way around and start off with the claw rush. So you can see some clips here of me actually getting some good use out of thrust surge, which is why I think this ability is still worth using with caution. Just be aware that sometimes it will not hit, so don't rely on the fact that if this doesn't hit right now, I'm gonna die. In that case, don't use the ability. And make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that indicator and how it changes, because it will make it easier to actually hit. And then lastly, we have Claw Rush, by far the best and coolest ability for General Grievous. It's incredibly good for both engaging and escaping, but I like to use it to get simple pickoffs. It's the absolute easiest way to kill a single target enemy in Galactic Assault. And there is something very important here to note that I think a lot of people might not still know, which is the fact that at the end animation, when he kind of does the front flip, he actually damages with his back legs when he flips them up. Which means that if you knock them down, they won't die, but then your back kick will actually kill them. And this means that you need to cancel the ability at the right time. If you let it go through the entire animation, chances are that you will run way past them and you won't actually kill them. But as you can see me using here, every time I hit someone, I instantly cancel the ability, as he will then flip up the back legs and finish off the kill. A very simple way to take someone out, and there's literally no way they can dodge that if they are a normal soldier. And I pretty much do the same thing as well in Heroes vs Villains. So yeah, Claw Rush, fantastic ability, use it as much as possible. It does 130 damage as the default value without any star cards, which means that it won't one-shot a person with full health. And I think that's also worth noting with the thrust surge that it does 160 damage as the default and 200 if you have the momentum star card epicked out. So you can one-shot heavies, but again, since the thrust surge isn't very reliable at the moment, I wouldn't focus on getting star cards for it. And while we are talking about star cards, I think one really good thing about Grievous is the fact that he has a lot of star cards that are actually worth using. So it's a bit up to what you prefer. But for me, there are a couple of clear winners here. And first of all, I'm gonna start off with Galactic Assault cards, where the health on kill card is obviously a given. It's called Cyborg Rage, and you get it in level 10, and that's the one I currently use. And then the Beating Heart star card that increases the health regeneration overall. Those two are, I would say, very important in Galactic Assault if you want to survive for long periods of time. And the third one, it's a bit up to what you prefer. I like Sith Trained, as at green level, it will add 20 extra damage to your lightsaber, and you normally do 130 damage, which means that with the Sith Trained card green, you will actually be able to one-shot all classes except the heavy. And having to do one less lightsaber swing is very important due to the fact that the animationer is pretty slow. So it can really save you a lot of health and potentially your entire life by being able to kill them in one instead of 2 hits, especially if it's someone with a Vanguard, for instance. So I think Sith Trained is the best card for that. But some people do also like to use the Line Up Weaklings card, which is the last card you unlock actually, which means that I don't even have that card. But I thought I'd bring it up anyway, since people like What a Weirdo recommended it. At epic level, it adds 50 extra damage for anyone you hit beyond the first Claw Rush hit, basically, which gives you a total of 180 damage. So that means that if you use the Claw Rush, hit one person, anyone after that during the same Claw Rush use will get hit by 180 damage and therefore die instantly if they're not a heavy or a hero. So I think that can be pretty good, but when I've played him, it's not that often that I hit like 3 or 4 people. Sometimes 2 people, sure, and at that point the second person would die instantly. But I think if I had to pick here, I'd rather one-shot them with a lightsaber. Otherwise, maybe switching out the health regeneration card could be worth it to have both of those damage cards, which will make you kill people faster, simply put. As for the Thrust Surge and Unrelenting Advanced cards, I don't think any of those are worth it right now, simply because, well, those abilities aren't very reliable, they don't work, and especially Unrelenting Advance isn't worth using at all. So that's why I don't think those cards are even interesting to look at right now. But there is one more card that I think is worth bringing up, which is the one that reduces the damage you take during Claw Rush, because the damage reduction is quite significant, spanning from 70 to 90%. Personally, I kind of feel like whenever I use the Claw Rush, I don't really get hit a lot because you're so small. You're very fast, so I don't think it's worth using a star card slot for that specific star card. Except for in Heroes vs Villains, for instance, where it might actually be worth it, because sometimes it will cancel the actual Claw Rush by a force push or similarly, but the damage still applies, which means that I think the damage reduction might still apply as well. And plus, you don't really need a health card in a hero game mode. So I would say that you should switch out the health star card for hero modes and then swap it back on for Galactic Assault. Best thing here is to test it out, simply put. There's a lot of different playstyles, it depends on what you like to do, so test them out and see what you like. But these are the cards that I use right now: Beating Heart, Cyborg Rage and Sith Trained. And in regards to the playstyle overall, one big recommendation I can have that is also very good on Yoda is that you should jump and hit, because that will skip the kind of slow part of the hit animation. As of right now, if you for instance slash your lightsaber normally, you will get stuck in that animation, and if you miss that one, they can shoot at you, versus if you jump and hit, you can instantly dodge sideways or move the second you land on the ground, and you will still be able to hit them really well. Simply jump, slash, jump, slash, jump, slash. Try to do that as much as possible. It obviously won't be possible in every single situation, but it's better than trying to slash on the ground, as you will be able to move more and therefore survive more, which I think is very important with Grievous. But yeah, those are the tips I have for you. I hope they will be to any help for those of you struggling with Grievous. And again, I'm still trying to master him myself, but just by playing the last 36 hours or so, at least to the point where I'm recording this video, I have improved a lot. And in Heroes vs Villains, it's pretty common that I get the top spot with Grievous, versus in Galactic Assault I'm still struggling to get these longer kill streaks, simply because it is very easy to get killed as Grievous right now. But if you play carefully with the Claw Rush, it can go pretty well. If you guys have any tips of your own for Grievous, make sure to leave them in the comments below, as maybe they will help some of your fellow Battlefront players. And if you enjoyed this video, I would highly appreciate some feedback as well. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.